and we identified 8 critical success factors. They are
Sure.
self-efficacy, market intelligence, strategic planning, marketing strategy, sales strategy and skills, money management, business operations, and business intelligence. Those are the 8 umbrella categories that everything lives under. Your cybersecurity, your research and development, all this stuff, it all fits under those 8 categories. Self-efficacy is about being effective yourself, getting things done and working well with others and having discipline and a sense of urgency and having emotional intelligence and adaptability and being resilient, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Daryl Urbanski, who is a serial entrepreneur and who is a person that I'm very excited to have a conversation with because he's a fellow Canadian as well. So, Daryl, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure. Hi, everyone listening. Sending love to you and your families.
Amazing. Well, Daryl, why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about kind of your history, the things that you've got going on right now, and what led you to becoming a serial entrepreneur and doing the things that you do today?
So, well, I guess maybe where do I start? I think I think being an entrepreneur comes from a need to figure out how to do something a better way, or an inability. You don't, there's nowhere that you want to work, or where you worked you're not happy with, so you decide to try to do it better. And ultimately, that's how a free market's supposed to work. A free market is supposed to work where people vote with their dollars on the most excellent solution. I mean, that's ultimately it at the end of the day, right? All a company is, I think Elon Musk said this, all a company is a group of people solving the problem of another group of people, and they do it via a product or service.
Mm.
So Greg Glassman from CrossFit has this great talk where he talks about, markets are unknown and unknowable. And I explain that in saying, if I asked you how many people were in market to buy a car today, there's keyword searches, there's foot traffic and cell phone GPS data, but really the number is sort of unknown and unknowable. You can have estimates. The real number is unknown and unknowable, but everybody can recognize excellence. So if you just focus on doing an excellent job, solving something better than everyone else, and you're known, because that's something else. I had a guy on my podcast yesterday, and we were talking about that, how most people are unknown. They're nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
But if you're known and you're one of the, and you're obsessed about excellence, that should see you through. You should always be able to have sort of food on the table type thing. And that's how a free market's supposed to work, because then if you stop taking good care of people, they'll take their business elsewhere. If you don't provide the service that they want, they'll go elsewhere. But we have a lot of government interference and stuff where they create monopolies, and there's also protectionism. My goodness, Adam, it's because I haven't slept. In the Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, I think, was the author. He wrote about how certain trades were setting up rules about, like, if you wanted to learn that trade, you had to do a certain, like, there was a limit. A tradesperson could only train this many people, and you can't, you aren't full-fledged until you've been an apprentice for this long. But none of it was merit-based. It was a protectionism. It was to create hurdles to protect themselves in that trade, to protect market fluctuations of the price and availability. And that there's just nuances that come out of that. And it's not that anyone's necessarily malicious or evil. It's just that everyone's working hard and nobody wants to work harder than they have to.
I like that. Something that stands out to me is everybody recognizes excellence. And I think that's so interesting because nowadays, and I don't know if you agree with this, so you can let me know. I think the bar for excellence is so low. So many people are trying to do the littlest they can to try to achieve these amazing results, which of course in some ways is very possible. You can leverage many things. You can leverage AI, you can leverage people, but they strive to just be the minimum and expect to have the maximum. So there's such a lack of people who can perform at an excellent standard consistently, but also want to do it with a level of excellence that other people don't. I think the bar for success is so low nowadays with people that are just so full of social media and distractions and things that don't really bring any fulfillment, as opposed to, as you were saying, being able to get rid of a pain problem in the market or strive for something that has a deeper purpose.
Well, I agree with that. There's two things I want to say about that. One is there's a saying you can't keep wealth past 3 generations because the first one
Mm,
struggles and earns it. The second one witnessed their parents grind, respects it, preserves it. And the third one knows only a life of luxury and becomes so detached from the morals and habits and values
mm,
that created it that they squander it.
mhm,
So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is that people have limited views. Not everybody even has their own passport. And even people that have some people that have their passport, some of them never left the country other than a cruise ship. Some of them have traveled, but they just go to the tourist destinations. They stay at the hotel, the hostel, whatever. They get a very filtered view of reality in these other countries.
mhm,
And we're all competing. That's the thing that, like, right now in today's area, we are entering the most competitive era in human history where you in this show, you recording me, you're competing with every other person on the planet with a device and an internet connection.
mm.
That's the most competitive it's ever been,
Yeah.
period. And so, and it's just going to be accelerating, especially now with AI sort of flatlining the competitive advantage, the moat a lot of businesses had built became flatline when AI came out because now they have to create an AI
Mhm,
component to what they're doing.
mhm.
So, so the other part of this is that, you know, I have an idea for a movie. I'll say it this way.
Okay.
I have an idea for a movie. Okay. Uh, it's whatever year, it's this planet around this sun, and it's a hyper competitive survival, you know, mentality, you could say. It's
Okay.
finite resources. Innovation technology can change that, but still finite resources.
Mm,
And certain groups have risen to the top and have established dominance, and other groups don't like that because they get paid less per hour, their money's worth less, and they want to be on the top dog.
mhm,
But they realize that they can't afford to pay for the tanks and the bombs and the bullets and all this sort of stuff. And then the taking care of the family and the medical care of all the soldiers. So they get an idea and they go, hey, what if instead of having to pay for an entire army, what if we just buy some media companies? What if we just buy some politicians and some scientists? And what if we just encourage people to adopt self destructive behaviors and philosophies that go nowhere? We don't have to fire a single bullet, and the people will just take care of themselves.
mm.
And to a certain extent, I think that's what's happening. I mean, if
Yeah.
your philosophy determines, Jim Rohn says, Jim Rohn is the godfather of personal development.
He's
Tony Robbins roadied at 17 years old with Jim Rohn. And Tony Robbins, not Tim Robbins, Tony Robbins is a modern day Jim Rohn. He took what Jim Rohn did and he, of course, made it better and made it his own. But he was 17, was working with Jim. And and his whole thing was your philosophy determines your outcomes in life. And
mm.
so when we look at countries, if you look at real GDP, we're in Canada right now, right? Well, we're Canadians, I should say. And
Yeah.
if we look at Canada, sorry, I'm on like 5 hours sleep. If
You're
we
good.
look at Canada right now, and that's not intentional, get your sleep, folks. You need at least 7. I usually get 7. I've just had a couple of short nights. But if we look at Canada, Canada's like last. I had to talk with my buddy. He's like, well, you know, according to the G7, G20, I was like, what about the world? Where's
Mhm,
Canada on the global scale? Right now, Canada is liquidating its youth to try to enrich the older and the retiring.
mm.
And you can tell that because there's a mass exodus from Ontario and all the other provinces to Alberta, which is
Huge.
the only province that's tried to make any sense over the last
Yeah.
like number of years.
Yeah. I don't know
So
so many people that moved as well. Like
yeah,
I have close friends of mine that are just like gone, literally
yeah.
all in Calgary, Alberta, and
And
like
they
getting
left.
Edmonton. Yeah.
They either left Canada, like myself, or they went to Alberta if they could.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
And
and it's yeah. Sorry,
yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic, and that movie, as you said, that the idea for the movie, it just sounds like
movie idea.
exactly right. It's so recognizable for everything that's happening nowadays.
Well, Canada's got 13 people that have been known to be compromised by foreign powers, but who are they? We can't know. Oh, let's have an election and maybe vote for one.
Mm,
Like this is how ridiculous it is. There is a CIS, was it Canadian Intelligence Services? They testified that since I think it's since the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, every political group has been compromised by the Chinese political party.
Hmm.
There's a video floating around online of this guy from CIS saying that they have evidence that they can prove. And, it's just, we've always been proud as Canadians to walk this line between capitalism and socialism. It's just tough. Right now, I think 1 in 4, 1 in 5 Canadians, their income is dependent on federal sources.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's yeah.
For sure.
So I don't know if that's where you want this interview to go. I
Oh
don't.
yeah, there's been better times. There's been better times, and we'll kind of I'll switch it back to kind
Yeah.
of some of your journey because when we first had our conversation, which was of course before this recording, you're telling me about so many things, so many projects that you had. But I got curious about kind of what were some of the first journeys, some of your first ventures in entrepreneurship, the things that you were doing when you're first getting started, and how they compare to everything that you have going on right now, which a lot of them were very exciting ideas.
Yeah, great question. Well, I mean, I was an orphan, so no one was paying for me to go to college or university. So I got my PhD, my public high school diploma, and off to the races I went. Right. I did a program called Katimavik in Canada. I got to travel Canada for 9 months. I spent 3 months in BC, Caramias, BC, 3 months in Bonnyville, Alberta, and then 3 months in Saint-Raphaël, Bellechasse, Quebec. And that was like my life in a lot of ways was before and after that. Because I'd never been able to travel and see. And it was such a great way to expose myself to the world because every 3 months, not only were you in a new community, which had a different culture, right? And different people with different philosophies and different ethos, but you'd have a different job. You'd have a full-time job, volunteer while you were there. And then 2 weeks of that 3 months, you would bill it. You would stay with a local family. It was just like a live and experience, see how people in this area live. And so I would see. And so for me, I'd only had the one family that I'd grown up with. That was the only paradigm that I had of how people lived. And then I lived with on a farm. And then I lived with this teacher and his wife. No, he was an insurance guy, and his wife was a teacher, and their kids were like so crazy gothic. It was like if almost like us. We're using Riverside right now, and I see my photo on this side, and your and I's. There's like a dark line, like almost like it was But if I remember sitting at the dinner table once, and I was sitting at either the head or the foot, whatever. I was on the edge, and I remember looking. I'm like, if I put a mirror down this, it was like how tight these parents are. It's the exact opposite on this side, like the rebelliousness. Like I could just,
Interesting.
it was just such a cool dichotomy to see. And then and then in Quebec, well, that's not appropriate, but I had a very interesting experience staying with the family in Quebec. We'll just say that. Um, but so I had 3 different jobs. Like I'm 17, right, turning 18. I've now had 3 different jobs. I worked at an Indian band office. I worked with the local mayor of a small town, and I did a bunch of restoration work. And then what did I do the other? No, the third one and was the mayor in Quebec, and in BC. Oh, I worked. I was a teacher's assistant, grade 5 teacher assistant. I worked with the librarian, and I had wanted to be a social worker, but then I changed my mind because working at that school, there were things I realized you don't leave at work. There are things that go on in a school or that go on with kids in the community, and you don't just like clock out and go home and not take that with you. So that changed my mind. And then I wanted to go back out west, and so I needed to figure out a way. I love BC so much. So one of my first online marketing experiences, I'm like 18. I went online. There were online classifieds. I started calling people. I found a lady that had a room in her house that I could rent for $400, and I put together a 3 email campaign. I had no idea what I was doing, but the first one was a cover letter, my resume. It was like an email, my cover letter, my resume. The second one was a PowerPoint presentation, why me versus anybody else. And the third one was like a final notice because I was going to hitchhike out west, out BC. And I just went and I went to the Penticton Chamber of Commerce website, and I just scraped all the businesses' emails off their site. And I just
This was you trying to get a digital marketing position, just like get that experience and start that side of things. Is that how it was?
No, I wanted to go back out to BC, and I needed a job when I got there because I'm
Oh, I see.
18. I'm 18. I got $1,000 to my name. I put my stuff on a bus and shipped it out west, and I hit the highway. My mom convinced me because it was the middle of winter to take a bus to I think Sault Ste. Marie just to get north of Toronto, just to like just because if you're gonna hitchhike, just get through Toronto first. I've learned a lot hitchhiking. That was a great great
I
experience.
bet.
But yeah, so then I hitchhiked and I ended up hitchhiking across Canada 6 times. So
Oh,
like from Ottawa to, Vancouver-ish. That when I say across, I didn't go from
I mean, that's pretty.
America.
That's a majority of the country covered there. So
Sure. But that's I wanted to have a job. I was being proactive. I wanted to have a job when I got out there. So I was just kind of like, hey, I'm looking for work. And I actually had I forget his name now, but he was the manager of Hostling International, Penticton. And he said, sure, hit me up when you get out here. And I ended up working there, ended up being the night manager. And so I went out and that was my first online marketing experience. And then when I got
mhm,
there, I was finishing high school because I took a year off to do Katimovic. And then I was going to school today and then working evenings and nights. And then I started designing my life in terms of how do I make money and live on my own? Because all my friends that I had, they were all still living at home. I was 17, 18. I was out paying my own bills. You know what I mean?
mm,
So like I got a job working security at the local nightclubs once I was 19 because I wanted to be able to see and party with my friends, but at the same time I needed to make money. And so there were 5 nightclubs and there was one, they were called the Party Police. And there's one company that did security for all of them. And then I worked for them, and I would be able to talk to my boss and find out where my friends are going and work at that one. And I would have
mm.
to work, but then on my breaks I could just go and chill with people. I couldn't drink, but
Yeah,
uh,
but you're still there, like having the fun, enjoying the experiences and everything else with them.
yeah, well,
I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah, yeah. I get 20 minutes and I can see them. Like
yeah,
my job is to stay in the corner and watch and
yeah, just
talk
like
to people.
hello.
So I could, yeah, so I could still and people they could come up and talk to me and stuff. But I learned a lot about people doing that too. I remember like
Yeah,
there always whenever there was a line, people would be trying to cut the line. I remember some guy he got in my face, he pulled out $100 bills, like, see this man? He started burning. He's like, fuck you, man, fuck you, because I wouldn't let him cut the line. He's like, fuck you. I was like, bro, you're just burning your own money. Like I don't care. That's not even my money now. And some other guy, I wouldn't let him in. And I remember he came by afterwards and he was like, what do they call that when they smoke the tires? He's just like,
oh, burnouts. Yeah, just do burnouts.
or he's doing a burner. He's like, he's like looking at me.
You're like, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, there was bikers. I think this one guy was going to get killed one night. It was the Hell's Angels town, and these bikers were trying to push this guy out,
Mm,
and the other guys were trying to stop me. And I was I was going to go break out. They're like, man, don't get involved. Don't get involved. I was like, no, no, no. And I went over. I was like, hey, gentlemen, I see there's a problem here, and I'm really sorry. I hope you guys can resolve this. But this is my job is to make sure everyone gets home safe when they come here. So unfortunately, you're going to have to resolve this some other time. I'm going to have to ask you gentlemen to leave him alone and leave and whatever. And that guy was like, bro, you saved my life tonight. I actually have this giant tattoo on my back he gave me for free.
oh wow.
Just like, just come by sometime. And apparently he got the time he needed to save himself. Um, so it was a really interesting thing. And then I was always into renewable energies. I mean, try to tie this in, I probably spent half the interview talking about
It's
nonsense.
all good. No, yeah,
But
I'm just like, 'cause I love the buildup because it shows like the experience and so many things that people often forget. Because I think when someone like look at yourself now, you have so many ventures, so many things that you're doing, that so many things that are going on, so many projects, so much of your attention being split up between different things, and you're like, oh yeah, it must have been always like this. But it's nice to see like the beginning stages of like the first few experiences, the things that led to which I will ask you now, like the tipping point where you're like, okay, I think I want to start doing my own thing and figure out what that path is going to be and how
yeah,
that now trickle down to so many things you have now.
yeah, yeah. So one thing I note on that, it sounds like I'm doing a lot of things, but for me, I actually feel like I'm doing very few things.
Mm,
And
exactly.
but they're transferable, if that makes sense. And we can get into that depending how much time we got. But and I started working on opening up. I liked working at the hostel. I had a bunch of different jobs and I wanted to open up my own, but I wanted it to be smarter. I wanted to be better. So I started figuring out how do I do this with renewable energy? How do I do this with solar? How do I build a better home type thing? And I got a letter from the economic development officer of a Soyuz, BC, saying we could use this. There's room for this in a
Mm,
Soyuz. I got one of my friend's dads offered to put $50,000 down to help me get the loan to buy the building I would need to renovate in order to make the youth hostel. And then I sort of shit my pants and just kind of didn't do it. And the reason is that at that point in time, I just bought a car about 8 months earlier and I bought a complete lemon and I went against my friend's advice that was a mechanic. And I'm like, I haven't been able to keep a girlfriend for more than a year and a half. The biggest purchase I've made was this car, and I just made a terrible decision with this car, and I'm regretting it. And it's costing me so much time and money to like get this thing fixed every week. And I was like, now I'm about to marry like $300,000. And if I mess this up, I'm going to spend the rest of my life under the weight of this. And so I didn't, I decided, I went against it. But then to kind of go back to entrepreneurship, I've been very nomadic in my life. And
mm,
that caused me to have to find work all the time. And I've actually been working remotely since at least 2012, probably prior to that. And a lot of that was built out of necessity. I mean, we don't have a ton of time, but I mean, I went and worked in Japan for 3 years, right? And I
Mm,
had to find work before I got there. So now I've got to figure out, how do I communicate across time and space, in order to try to line up work when I'm not even there. And being nomadic, how do I take my work with me? It's a lot of work to try to restart all the time, right? How do I build
mhm,
something? And then even, how do I build something where I don't necessarily have to do all the work myself? How do I leverage
mhm.
myself and my time? So those are some of the earliest parts of this. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And by the way, for time, I'm good for time if you're good for time as well. Of course, you
sure.
can let me know. You can let me
Yeah.
go, Daryl, but I can kind of go on. I have the rest the next
Okay.
30 minutes blocked off, so you can let me
Sure.
know how that goes. But when it comes to, I think it's funny you say. I think the perspectives that we have are so interesting because they differ from everybody else that is looking at us, but we are looking at ourselves like internally. And that was like kind of a shitty analogy, but we often judge ourselves by our own standards. And like to me, as looking at you hours, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of things going on for Daryl. But for Daryl, looking inwards, Daryl is like, oh no, I need to be doing more even sometimes. So
Yeah.
I would love for you to share with everybody some of the cool things that you have going on. You mentioned so many projects when we had our first conversation, so it'll be cool for everybody else to listen to those things.
Sure. Well, again, I think, um, let's, I think every generation is trying to improve on the previous. And
Mm,
so anything I say that might throw shade on previous generation or what has been, I understand that it's taken us where we are. And once you solve a problem, even once a business, I mean, once we got iPhones, now we got the new problem of, like, once we had social media, now we have a new problem. And so I understand that. But I think in some ways, what has held people back is education. If somebody had told me when I was 19, Daryl, the path to freedom is learning how to successfully run a small business and to own some land outright with your own house and be able to be self sufficient to a small extent,
mm,
that would have changed the game for me. That would have completely changed my life. Would have looked so different, But what's that meme? No one will give you the education you need to overthrow them. It's like a Charlie
mm,
Brown meme thing. And it's really profitable. My wife and I, we walk in our neighborhood. I'm in the Philippines right now. We walk in our neighborhood. It's $250,000 to $500,000 in this one. And I'm in a third world country. And just estimating what we pay for electricity and counting how many houses estimates in this neighborhood we walk around, it's a quarter to $500,000 a month in utilities, just electricity in this third world country neighborhood
mm.
that I'm in, right? Which can't really tell. Anyways,
Yeah.
and it's incredibly profitable. That's per month. That's per month. So it's not that we don't have the ability to empower people to, it's I've been using I hope I'm not bouncing around too much. I've been using CRM software, Infusionsoft, for like 14, 15 years. And in the
Mm,
beginning, everybody was selling stuff and it was like a one-time payment to get this tool. And then everybody got wise and they started charging less, but it was recurring forever. So
mm,
before, they might have sold it for 150 bucks and it did this thing to add on to the CRM and make it better. And it maybe
mm.
cost them 300 bucks to pay a developer to do. Then they got wise. They go, okay, instead of charging 150, I'm going to charge you $27 a month forever.
Yep.
And it just became, in some ways, it started hollowing out the community because everybody just started like death by subscription, where everything that you needed and wanted to add on was just, and that's what the life feel like where we're at now. It's death by subscription between, I mean, you're in Canada, you're paying, if you're in the upper income bracket, you're paying 36% federal income tax, you're paying 12% provincial or more income tax. So you're almost at 50% income tax. And then we have a 15% tax on everything you buy. So everything I'm buying, I'm now paying 15%. I mean, what is this? How much of my life energy are you entitled to?
Mm,
And then all the subscriptions, like, it's just not, it's never ending, right? People are stuck living in condos now. It's not that there's not enough space that we couldn't all have houses. It's not that we couldn't be smart and be better with our resources. So it's really anyways. So one of the projects I'm working on is the Oasis Bio Home, because I think
mhm,
that with the housing crisis, I think it's an intentional crisis because it's insanely profitable to have someone stuck in a condo paying their condo fee every month, their electric bill, their water bill, their insurance bill. And you might own your condo, and even if you pay it off, you still got to pay your condo fee and your insurance and your water bill and and your electric bill. And if you fail to pay any of those, they just take your condo from you,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And so the Oasis Bio Home is a beautiful self-sufficient home you can build in 90 days, pay off in 3 to 5 years, and be somewhat food, power, water self-sufficient. It's essentially, for people that are listening to this, I took the Earthship concept. Michael Reynolds, great guy, met him when I was 19 at Ryerson University. Um, and I followed him for years. I'm 42 right now. I've paid him a dozen times for consulting, and I brought him in on this project. And so the Earthship's been a self-sufficient house he's been building for 55 years, but there's a lot of drawbacks that's prevented it from being more mainstream. And so I
Mm,
partnered with this company called Wonderful Structures, who's been building these sort of prefabricated hobbit houses. And so the benefit of that is you can have an earth berm, and earth is an amazing insulator. And there's all these values. And we took their eco green model and we applied the Earthship systems, because a lot of the people, it turns out, I found out when I started talking with the company, a lot of people are buying the eco green and then trying to duct tape and bubble gum those systems into it,
mm,
which worked but didn't work. And now we made the Oasis, which has them included. And so this is a prefabricated home we ship anywhere in the world. You have to assemble it on site. You have to pour a concrete slab. You have to buy cisterns. There's things you have to buy that don't come with it. You have to assemble it. You're building a house, but we come in cheaper in the United States, at least. Typical traditional stick built house is about $150 a square meter on the low end, $300 per square meter on the high end, and
mhm,
we come in at $128 on, and that's just, and we're already, this model is already the eco green. You can find it on Airbnb, booking.com. It is almost always 5 out of 5, 4.7 out of 5. It is a highly rated.
mm,
It was originally designed and built mostly on luxury resorts. So it's a
mhm,
beautiful model. And so it's cheaper. You can build it in 90 days. Comes with solar kit. Has passive cooling, a geothermal cooling system. The earth
mhm,
burn. You can do passive solar heating. And the gray water has a rainwater and a gray water system, meaning the whole building's designed to collect all the rainfall. And then the water system's designed that your gray water, your shower water, your bathroom sink water, your washing machine water, all that you recycle. There's 4 indoor garden beds, and you water them by taking a shower, and you can plant whatever you want. There's an Earthship in Brampton, Ontario, I think, that's either growing mangoes or bananas year round, because the inside temperature is stable. And because gray water, there's 2 types of wastewater from a house. One's black water, which is sewage. Can't
mm,
use that. The other's gray water, which mostly has soap. And soap is a pollution because when you put that into a lake or stream, it causes plant life to explode because it's full
mm,
of nitrogen and phosphate, which is also known as fertilizer. And so you
mm,
pump that into a lake or stream, it upsets the natural balance of the ecosystem. Just like we learned in school, when there's too many foxes, not enough rabbits, the foxes die off, and then there's more rabbits. You upset that balance. That's why it's
yeah.
pollution. But if you pump it through a garden, it's fertilizer. It's just not pre-balanced. So you have to set it up. The 4 garden beds. The first one, you put the hardier plants. The second one, you do your leafy greens, and the last two, plant whatever you want in there. And so now you got a small amount of food. Living in the Philippines, it's super common here for people to have a couple of chickens just running around the house. Like they don't have a fence. They just have some chickens just running around. One
Right.
chicken gives you about 5 eggs a week, 5 or 6 eggs a week. So you got 2 chickens, you're getting like almost 2 eggs a day for free. They're not feeding them. They're not going out and feeding. They're eating grasshoppers and ants and caterpillars, just running around eating whatever they can find. A millipede, boom, scratching the
Yeah.
ground, eating a worm. And it's all organic, or like our great grandparents used to say, it's just food. Like
Uh-huh.
wasn't organic and inorganic. And
Just protein, natural protein.
so I mean, this is a way to build a house. And now you've got no electric bill. Your water bill is basically zero. You got no worry, don't have to worry about heating and cooling as much, especially because the way the building's designed, it reduces the cost by 80% or more.
Mhm.
And you can grow a small amount of food,
This is
and you
just
can
like
pay it off faster.
yeah, for sure. And with the sense of entrepreneurship as well, I think it's always nice to hear the things that are really working well and like good projects. But I also like the side of entrepreneurship. Sometimes is not always the easiest thing. So I'd love to hear kind of what do you think are some of the biggest challenges into be able to make Oasis the thing that it has a potential to be.
Well, for the Oasis, part of it is just it's new, and a house is not an impulse purchase. So we launched this November last year. It's May 2nd. We probably generated around 5,000 plus leads. I think we've been featured in 3 to 5 publications just organically, not necessarily like I'm not paying for it or anything. And we probably have 60 to 70 projects that are underway. We got 20 buildings they're getting ready in Germany once we get the permits. It's just a slow process because you have to get land. First, you have to get financing, then you have to get land, then you have to find your builders and get your permits, and then you have to build it, and then we have to get it shipped. So, like, we shipped one to Turkey. Lady bought one in Turkey. So, it's just a slower process. But I think once we sell 100 to 1,000 of these, once we not sell, but once we get 100 to 1,000 of them built, I think we're going to have lawfare issues. I don't want to manifest this or attract it, but I think that entrenched um, interests are going to push back because this is a home that, like, I have an aunt in Canada. Canada, we've got this wonderful program because the government doesn't want people to realize that they've pilfered the pension plan. And so it's called medically assisted intentional death, or MAID. And so if you feel a little sad or you're a little achy, you go to the doctor, you go, I'm not feeling well. And they go, oh, have you considered dying? And they're like, no. And the doctor's like, oh, it's all the rage. You should try it. You go, okay, great, cool. And they go, cool. Let's see you next week, Tuesday. So you go back Tuesday and they put you to sleep like a dog, and the doctor gets his 50 grand or whatever for the services. And now the government doesn't have to pay you the retirement fee that I promised you, that you've been paying into for your whole life. And also they get to absorb 50% inheritance tax, everything that you lost. So it is a great money maker for the government. It decreases dependence, and it alleviates some of the pressure that the criminals, the corrupt politicians are facing, having to admit that they've mismanaged the funds of Canada and basically devalued our dollar and eliminated our purchasing power. So I have an aunt that went and got this done. My parents have 5 friends that have had this happen to them. And a lot of it has been because of the pressure of the cost of living going up, where you're on a fixed income. And then what? But if somebody owned an Oasis Bio Home and they had it paid off, and a lot of people don't realize this, when we talk about the values that made a civilization great, usury. Usury is loaning money at interest. This is not a Christian value. It's not a Catholic value. It's not an Islamic value. And if a government had to follow the moral values, I'm not trying to say anything about, yes, there's contradiction in the Bible. Sure, believe what you want to believe. But when we're talking about philosophy, like I said, the philosophies that build a great nation, that made Canada great, usury is not part of that. When my grandparents bought a house, the average 1-year salary was around 33% the price of a home. So that means the average 1-year salary was 33% the price of a home. Today, it's around 8%.
Yeah.
But everyone's getting paid more. The wood's still wood. The metal's still metal. None of that's changed. But the value of the dollar's gone down. They talk about the 2% inflation, right? Well, inflation is theft. So why is there any percent inflation? Like this part, it's just anyway. So usury is not a value that made our country great. And if we had to abide by that value, governments wouldn't be able to print money to pay off debt. We wouldn't have 30-year death pledge. Mortgage is Latin for like death pledge. So you wouldn't have 30-year mortgages. Governments wouldn't be able to print money. So there's all these philosophical things that have changed that now we have all these symptoms, and it's the underlying philosophy. And I think that's like, I'm not saying everyone has to be, pick a faith, but I mean, the world is based off of activity. If I eat healthy and I go to the gym every day, then I'm likely to have health. I have nothing against, I've got no issue with trans people. I've got no issue with gay couples, all that sort of stuff. That's fine. But it's not something I think to idolize because there's no offspring. And so it's not to say that it's right or wrong or good or bad. You just go, oh, well, if you just make that like the reigning philosophy, your birth rate's going to plummet and you're just going to stop. Your culture's just going to disappear. And so again, that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to say that it's good or evil or none of this stuff. I'm just like, like, sure, there's a need, adopt. Okay, adopt. There's lots of kids that need to be adopted. That's great. But then it's again, like, what do you optimize for? What are we optimizing for? When you go to the
horizon, right? The math.
When you go to the gym and someone's teaching you, you've got a fitness coach. What do you want him optimizing for? Do you want him to optimize to get you the most out of every minute that you're paying them to train you in the gym? When you pay for a nutritionist, do you want the best diet that's out there that's possible? Or do you just want like sort of bottom middle of the pack performance?
Hmm.
And that's why I'm saying it's like, it's not about what's right or wrong or good or bad or any of this stuff. It's about like, what's the end goal here? Are we just living for ourselves and hedonism and then we're going to go? I do agree with some who believe that you owe your ancestors something. Like
Hmm.
I drive down the road sometimes and I think about, and I actually try to be grateful for it. All the people who spent weeks, months, and maybe even years working outside in the hot sun to make this road so I can get where I'm going in 20 minutes.
Yeah. Something that we never think about ever.
Right.
Like, we
We are
just
the
take
tip
it
of the
for
spear.
granted. Yeah.
Right. Right. Whether we've slid back and the Egyptians had better technology than us or not, we are the tip of the spear right here, right now. And we owe it to ourselves and our species and our bloodline and
Mhm.
for the gift of life to try to keep that going.
Hmm.
So that's sort of where I stand on that. But so I've got
Hmm.
the Oasis Bio Home, and then I've got a lot of software projects. Two agencies, and one of them we're trying to change from being a service business to a software based business, where instead we just have humans that are managing software and AI, and
Hmm.
we're getting pretty close to that right now.
Hmm.
Um, and then I've got 800 dragon fruit planted.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this. Yeah, you mentioned this to me last time.
Well, because
Yeah. That's,
COVID was a big wake up call. Like you can have an insurance policy. We got caught in Vietnam. We were there for 2.5 years. We'd only intended to go for like 6 months, a year, and keep traveling. But we ended up getting stuck and ended up being there for 2.5 years. And when we got out, we had to pay some stupid like $600 a month insurance package to be able, like a 1 year contract for $600 a month to be able to travel. But when COVID's happening, what are you gonna do? You can't eat your insurance policy.
hmm.
You have to pay out now and then call them later and then argue with them and then maybe get it. But if you look at the profits of the company, I mean, insurance companies make money hand over fist. It's such a racket. It's the whole pay me $1 today, and if you need $100 tomorrow, I'll pay it to you. But then, by the way, like my parents, they had a flood in Windsor, and they've been paying homeowners insurance their entire lives, and guess what? Wasn't covered.
Wow.
They're like in their 70s. They've been paying it for their entire lives. Oh, sorry, it wasn't in your policy. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought I had homeowners insurance. It didn't cover me for something that happened to my home. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So, it's a crazy world. But so COVID was a big wake up call. Again, talking about a lot of people are living hand to mouth. We live in such a debt based society. It's sacrifice, like it's just backwards. Sacrifice tomorrow so I can be comfortable today. And we're just
Hmm.
gonna pass the buck to the kids. We're gonna liquidate our children. And so I'm just trying to do the exact opposite. I'm trying to build real things, real wealth. Planet 800 dragon fruit. That's real assets. We're trying to develop property. My wife's father, he has a big piece of farmland. He's got goats, pigs, chickens.
Hmm.
And I think I inspired him. I like to think so, because prior to, he was planting things like corn and sugarcane and things you would plant and then harvest, and then you have to plant again. But after we put in the 800 dragon fruit, he went to town and he planted like 50 papaya trees, 50 banana trees. He started planting all these calamansi trees, which are like these golf ball size kind of lime things, a little smaller than a golf ball, more like a ping pong ball. Um, but he just started planting all these permaculture crops where you plant them and you take care of them. Like I planted the dragon fruit because that's for 40 years. That's going to make something like
Hmm.
tangible, physical, like real. You can't AI food, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm interested to hear from you. When you look at, it can be this specific projects that you have going on uh with planting the trees. It can be Oasis. It could be the software. All these things. When there is something that you're looking towards building, are there certain specific things that you think are common patterns that happen that always have to be overcome? So some similar challenges that happens in all of these assets that you are building, that you have now recognized, or maybe you have not recognized, and you have to work through every single time you're just trying to build something new, but something that always just comes over and over and over when trying to grow a new project or a new thing.
Hmm. So a couple of things. One, I always try to begin with the end in mind. So I always try to see if there's $1 million in it and work backwards,
Hmm.
because you can spend a lot of time building something and you can build yourself a Ferrari and then realize, oh, I built it in a cul-de-sac with no no highway to actually let this thing rip on.
Mm,
I feel like I did that with my martial arts school in Kingston. I built a martial arts school and I grew it to 6 figures. But then I realized I grew my web traffic from like 100 visitors a month to I think I was getting 3,000 visitors a month,
mhm.
but still only 100 of them were in Kingston. And I had a brick and mortar local business. So with all those other visitors, and I could have done an online thing. Sure. Okay, great. But um, so I always try to start and see if there's a hot market. I try to figure out how does it make $1 million? Is it viable? And it's not even about the money per se. It's about, you know, if I'm going to fish, if I'm going to set up somewhere to fish, if I'm think of ice fishing, if I'm going to cut a hole and build a shack to be here, am I going to have to move in 10 minutes or can can this thing stay here for a
Yeah.
while, right? So that's the intent for that, whether I make it to the million or not. And then I also try to find like I don't want to be doing. I actually almost felt bad. We talked about how I'm doing all these different things because I felt like you got to focus. If
Mm,
you think about it, what's the difference between like a normal light that lights a room and a laser, and it's the focus of the beam. And so you need to be hyper focused. So I really try to make sure everything I'm doing is transferable. So we talk about the Oasis Bio Home. Well, like I was talking about my wife's dad, I gave him the solar kit. He built a 6 bedroom, 4 bath house, and he planted all this, and he's got the farm, and we got the dragon fruit. Well, we're going to build our own oasis, and we're going to live in one, but then we're going to build more oasis as resorts. We're going to buy property in prime locations because raw land is cheaper than land that's already been hooked up to sewer, water, power lines. You have to pay a premium for someone to pay for that infrastructure to be built. So there's all these great high traffic tourist places where there's raw land lots right there, but no one's built there because there's no power there. There's no way to get water there. And I had this beautiful off-grid home that can store a month of water, right?
mm,
And then it powered from the sky, doesn't need heating and air con. The biggest draws on electricity are typically the freezer, fridge, and the air and the heating and cooling. And
mhm.
so if like we don't need to heat and cool the building, and we've got a root cellar, that cuts out 80% of the cost. If the building is airtight, there's not all these leaks around the windows and that sort of stuff. Game changer. And then what are we going to do? We're going to do landscaping, but we've already identified the 3 crops we want to plant because those are our crops. Those are the crops. We're going to have them with our dragon fruit. We're going to have other crops around that. And then we're going to do landscaping for these little resorts we set up, like little bed and breakfast kind of things. And then we'll put them on Airbnb. And now people can, it's Airbnb, it's booking.com, it's TripAdvisor. And by the way, did you know you could buy your own?
Mm,
And then we got the food on the land that we have that we right. So for me, it's all the same. And the agencies I'm doing, well, how are we going to market? I mean, every business has a sales department, a marketing department, right? They have to manage the money. They have to have market intelligence. So I spent $50,000 in 2020. Well, 2020 to maybe 2022, we'll say. I don't know. I have to double check my receipts, but I definitely spent a ton of money, around $50,000, to hire 10 people to help me go through all the academic research to figure out what moves the needle for small and medium sized businesses. And we identified 8 critical success factors. They are
mm.
self efficacy, market intelligence, marketing strategy. No, sorry. I, they're not wrong. I just, the order I like to tell them in is
Sure.
self-efficacy, market intelligence, strategic planning, marketing strategy, sales strategy and skills, money management, business operations, and business intelligence. Those are the 8 umbrella categories that everything lives under. Your cybersecurity, your research and development, all this stuff. It all fits under those 8 categories. Self-efficacy is about, being effective yourself, getting things done and working well with others and having discipline and a sense of urgency and having emotional intelligence and adaptability and being
Mhm.
resilient, right? The market intelligence. The business graveyard is full of world class businesses and services that nobody knew about or were
Mhm.
before their time. And then you've got the marketing strategy. If you have the world's greatest product service and nobody knows about it, are you going to make any money? Right? You have to have connection to the people that need the help. And then the sales strategy and skills, different sales cycles, but it's still sales. There's still a component of that. And then you got the money management. Enron posted $100 billion as profit 1 year before they went bankrupt. So the money management has to be done right, has to be in place. And then you have the operations. You need to have the glue that holds the business together, the meeting rhythms, the HR, the legal compliance, the intellectual property, the data security, all that stuff. And then you have business intelligence, which are like the dashboards and reports on how are we doing? How are we being perceived? What's happening? How does this project out? All that sort of stuff. So those are the 8 critical success factors. So you need those for any business. And so, like my agency, I say the one agency that I'm turning into a software company, it's got all those things, but it's also an agency. Well, what are we going to use the agency for? Well, we're going to use the agency for our rental properties. We're going to use the agency for the Oasis. We're going to use the agency
Mm,
for our clients, and the agency is a business on its own, right? And so, also by running the agency, I'm jumping in and I'm helping grow multiple businesses. And so, to a certain extent, it becomes almost like a plumber, where this might be a 2-story house, this might be a bungalow, this might be a condo building, but the principles of the plumbing are the same.
yeah. And in your case, they kind of become, in a way, a cycle of self-sustaining. I'll use the word abilities within them, so that they
Right.
supplement each other and rise. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool.
Right.
Daryl, this has been great. I have one final question here for you, which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to
Sure.
you, and they had no idea who you were. And this is an interesting one. Are you ready for the question?
Sure.
So sometimes it doesn't match, but I think this is actually an interesting one that will be cool for your answer. So I'm excited to hear it. So here's the question: do you have a set ritual before any type of meeting, public speaking, or important interactions within business?
Ah, yeah, actually, I try to start my day to get my mind right. It depends on the day and because of the time zone difference, but I almost always carve out an hour prior to doing anything for the day to get my mind right. So typically, either I'm walking my dog. I mean, now I got a 3.5-month-old daughter, so I'll have her strapped to me in the baby wrap, and I'll walk my dog, and I'll be doing meditation, or I'll be listening to things that are just getting my mind right. So I'm moving my body, I'm fueling my body right. In Tai Chi, they say start your day with a thunderbolt of vitality. So you kind of wake up my body, feed my mind, sort of set. Because if you wake up, the first thing you read, it sets the tone for your day. So I
Yeah.
really try to prep my stuff. Sometimes I like to do chanting meditations. I like
Mm,
no Nam Yoho Renge Kyo as one that I like. I also like some of the native chants that you can find, but I'll try to open up my lungs and that for that. But generally speaking, if I don't have a bunch of calls for that day, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go hit the gym. I'm going to go hit the
mm,
gym. I've been doing. I'm a huge advocate for personal fitness and discipline. You know, if you feel good, you look good. You've more mental resilience. You've got more energy to show up to everything. So I think that's really important to get your mind right.
that's awesome. And I think that ties perfectly back into the excellence bit that we were talking in the beginning, because if you look good, you feel good, you do the things that you care about, you prepare yourself, then you are also in a better mind frame or in a better position to achieve excellence in the things that will be coming right later in the day. So that's awesome.
True.
Daryl, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that you want to add there?
I did because people forget that not everything in the jungle kills you and eats you. That we live in a world full of parasites. It was shocking to me when I lived in Vietnam that apparently part of the culture there once a year is to take some sort of like anti-parasitic medicine. I grew up in Canada. We never did that.
Mm,
That was never a thing. We never take anti-parasitic medicine, but people assume the food chain is super clean and it's really not. And so there really is no such thing as work-life balance. There's your life goals and there's excuses. And that's the other
mm,
part. You have life goals and you have excuses and things, producers and consumers. When I consume Netflix, Netflix is making money and I'm losing. If I woke up every day and I had 24, can I know I've been rambling a lot. Can I read?
you're
Let me
good.
read. Let me read one of my favorite poems. I have this. I actually have. You talked about how I prep. I actually have a tab of things to read daily. Hold on, where is it? This one.
Well,
So I have
we said there are XYZ and there are excuses. What was the word you used?
yeah. No, there's life goals and there's
Life
exclusive.
goals. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the life goals. I had the word goals, but didn't have the life goals.
Yeah.
I love
No, hold on. Daily Pry. I want to find this because I love I haven't been I made a new one for my team to share with. But there's this great poem. I want to read that. I'm sorry. I know you want
Go
it at the
ahead.
end of the
Oh,
call,
go ahead.
but where is it? That's the make a
And
copy.
is this a poem that just sticks with you in kind of how you see life?
Well, I have a tab, so I track. I book my days, so I've got my Google Calendar, but then I try to schedule my day in 30-minute blocks to use my time
Mm,
well. And then I have a tab on there that says daily reads, and it's got things that I try to read every day.
mm.
And this is one of my favorite poems, and so it'll take me about 20 seconds to read it.
Go
But
ahead.
time is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It is unstealable. and no one receives either more or less than you receive. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day, and there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. It is impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. I have said the affair was a miracle. Is it not? You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it, you have to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friends, depends on that. If one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours a day shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. And that's by Arnold Bennett, How to Live on 24 Hours a Day. And so I wanted to share that because so many people don't have time for this, that, but they have to design their lives better. They have to do a better job, make better use of their time. And then where are you spending? If every day you wake up and you've got, say, 18 hours awake or 16 hours awake, that's $16. And every dollar I spend
Yeah.
is something that's
Yeah,
going to
you just
grow.
reminded me. Yeah, you just reminded me of a quote that I heard earlier last year that kind of stuck with me as well. Is we often hear like, hey, for example, just hey, how much have you hey Daryl, you told me you wanted to start reading last year. How much have you been reading? Oh yeah, actually, I haven't been reading as much as I wanted. It's like, no, 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 no. You've been reading as much as
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
as much as you wanted.
Exactly as much as you wanted. That's right.
Yeah, because if you wanted it more, you would have just made the time or you would have adjusted because you actually want it. So
Right.
we I think we often self-sabotage just even in our speech, the things that we say because yeah, not as much as I wanted, but that's not even true for ourselves. We're lying to ourselves unknowingly.
Right. Well, and again, in a competitive space, no one's going to tell you you go to the gym. No one's going to really do that. Like you people that you're competing with, they're never going to try to cheer you on. Like if I'm a dry cleaner and there's other dry cleaners I'm competing with in my area, none of them are going to go, no, you shouldn't take the holiday. You should work harder. I'm going to say, oh, I'm not feeling it. They're like, oh, you should relax. You should just sit down and relax. And that's it. I think, well, that's what they say. Hard times create what? Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times make strong men. And I think it's just a cycle.
100%, Daryl. Thank you so much for your time. This has been an incredible up and down roller coaster all over the place, but I really like the way that it turned out. And what a way to edit as well. Thank you for reading that poem. I will do my best to actually leave that down below here in the description. But for everyone else that wants to maybe learn a little bit more about you or maybe what you have going on, where should they go, Daryl?
Yeah, you can go to bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, or just Google Daryl, Daryl Urbanski. It's spelled how it sounds, except the U. Urbanski. Daryl Urbanski. I'm everywhere. Google, come talk to me, say hey, and send the love.
Amazing, Daryl. Thank you so much for your time. If you are still watching up until this point and you want to hear more conversations like this, please subscribe. I'll leave as many links as I can for Daryl here down below as well. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much. Take care.